Okay, so if you're going to be a science teacher, you know the lab is this amazing place of discovery, right? But let's be real, it can also be a place of danger. Today, we're diving into how to build a lab that doesn't just react to accidents, but actually prevents them from ever happening. Let's jump in.
So right off the bat, I want you to look at this and ask yourself a really simple question. Which one of these labs would you rather be in charge of? The one where you're always a step ahead of the chaos, or the one where you're constantly putting out fires? Your answer to that question, well, it sets the stage for everything we're about to talk about. And this lays out the two mindsets perfectly. You've got the reactive lab on one side, which is all about chaos, neglect, and just reacting when things go wrong. But on the other side, you have the proactive lab, and that's our goal today. It's built on a solid foundation of prevention, order, and a real culture of safety that starts with the design itself. So let's start right there with the foundation, the physical space. Look, this is so much more than just figuring out where to put the tables and chairs. This is about engineering safety into the very blueprint of your classroom. A smart layout is really your first line of defense. When you create separate zones for prepping, for the actual experiments, and for cleanup, you automatically reduce clutter and the risk of cross-contamination. Clear sightlines, that just means you can see every student from every angle all the time. And those last 2 points are huge, tucking away cables so no one trips and putting emergency gear right by the exits. These seem like small choices, but believe me, they have massive safety payoffs. Now, what's so powerful about this is that it shows how good organization is a form of prevention. I mean, storing acids and bases together isn't just a little messy. It's literally a recipe for a dangerous chemical reaction. You could get toxic gas. This table makes it absolutely clear. Putting chemicals in the right, separate cabinets isn't a friendly suggestion, it's an absolute must. Okay, let's zoom in to the individual student workstation. A proactive station is an organized one. These 4 steps are so simple, but they're incredibly powerful. Only keeping out what you need, that right there dramatically reduces the chance of spills. Using containment trays means that if a spill does happen, it's not a disaster. And clear labels, well, they prevent those catastrophic mix-ups that you really don't want. So we've designed a safe space, but you know, a lab is nothing without the people working in it. So let's shift gears to our second section, the human element, and talk about how we build proactive habits that create a genuine culture of safety. If there is one acronym you remember from all of this, let it be SOP, Standard Operating Procedure. And no, this is not just about paperwork and bureaucracy. SOPs create predictability, and predictability is safe. Think about it. Without an SOP, a student might just improvise how they dilute an acid, or they might mishandle a Bunsen burner. When every single student knows the exact step-by-step procedure for a task, you eliminate all that dangerous guesswork. And here it is, the official uniform of a safe lab. Personal Protective Equipment, or PPE, is completely 100% non-negotiable. And as the teacher, you have to be the one to model this every single time. When your students see that you treat your safety goggles and lab coat as being just as essential as the chemicals you're using, they'll understand how serious this is. Now, this might all seem like pretty basic stuff, but these rules are the absolute pillars of a proactive environment. No food or drink obviously prevents anyone from accidentally swallowing a chemical. Clear aisles mean a fast, easy escape route if there's an emergency. And cleaning your own station? That's about having respect for the next person who's going to use that space and making sure it's safe for them too. All right, so we've got a well-designed space and we have students with good habits. Now, for Section 3, let's get into the specifics, the actual hazards you'll be managing day in and day out. A proactive teacher knows exactly what the risks are before an experiment even starts. And first up, we have the most common one you'll deal with, chemical hazards. These can range from a simple skin irritant to a really powerful corrosive, and managing them the right way starts with one key document. The most important thing here is information. That safety data sheet, the SDS, is going to be your new best friend, seriously. It tells you everything you need to know, the risks, how to handle the chemical properly, and what to do in an emergency. Everything else on this list, using fume hoods, containing spills, labeling everything, it all stems from understanding the chemical's specific dangers in the first place. Next up, let's talk about a category that's super important for all you future biology teachers out there, biological hazards. Now, I know this sounds a lot more intimidating than it usually is in a school lab. Most of the work you'll do is what's called Biosafety Level 1, and the key mindset is really simple. Just treat all biological materials as if they are potentially hazardous. That just means you're consistent with your PPE and you're diligent about disinfecting your workspace before and after you use it. It's all about routine and having respect for the materials you're working with.
And finally, let's touch on physical hazards. These are the risks that don't come from the substances themselves, but from the actual equipment you and your students are using every single day. These are the everyday items that can become so dangerous if they're neglected. A frayed electrical cord, a wobbly hot plate, an unsecured gas cylinder. I mean, these are just accidents waiting to happen. The proactive teacher makes inspecting this kind of equipment part of their regular routine, not just an afterthought. And that brings us to our fourth section. Because, look, even in the absolute best, most proactive lab, incidents can still happen. The difference is, a proactive lab is prepared for them. Being ready to respond calmly and effectively is that final critical layer of safety.
Panicking is what turns a small problem into a big one. Having a clear, practiced procedure like this for something common, like a small spill, is crucial. And notice that very first step, alert. No student should ever feel like they have to hide a spill because they're afraid of getting in trouble. This protocol ensures a calm, systematic, and safe cleanup every single time.
I want you to burn this number into your brain. 15. 15 minutes. If a chemical gets into someone's eyes, that is the absolute minimum amount of time they need to be flushing their eyes at an eye wash station. This single stark number just hammers home why every single second counts in an emergency and why knowing exactly where that station is so critical.
So, we've covered the space, the habits, the hazards, and the response plan. And all of that brings us to our final and maybe the most important section, creating a legacy. A safety culture that your students will take with them long after they've left your classroom.
This is so incredibly important. A true safety culture isn't some top-down dictatorship where you just hand out rules. No, it's a shared responsibility. When your students feel safe enough to point out a wobbly beaker or to admit they made a mistake without being afraid of punishment, that's when you know you've built something truly powerful. You've created partners in safety.
And that really leaves us with our final question for you to think about. As you go out and build your own labs, ask yourself this. Are you just enforcing a checklist of rules, or are you actively growing a living, breathing culture where safety is a shared value? Because that, right there, is the difference between a reactive lab and a truly proactive one.